Welcome to another rendition of the Hatecast, brought to you by Chaos and Pain, www.chaosandpain.com. I'm sure you know that. And we're here with Jamie Lewis and
Yo.
Peter Baker.
Hey.
So, what is the summary of what we're doing here? What are we discussing here, Jamie?
I think we're going to make fun of powerlifters, right?
Oh, okay.
Mostly, yeah. I know Bryce and I had the idea that we should mock geared lifting in great deal.
Mock is a strong term.
I'm going to try to
we'll get
avoid
into that.
using the term clown shoes.
So okay, the overcomplication of lifting and strength training in general, I think, is a good little title there.
Yeah,
So-
and I was hoping you could cover a bit of that in bodybuilding as well,
I certainly will. You know I will.
since you're a resident bodybuilder. Peter, what would you call your area of specialization other than, according to your Skype photo, I'm guessing it's cross-dressing?
I have done that. Is that my Skype photo? Jesus
Or
Christ.
it's your Facebook photo.
Oh, yeah. Basically, my audience of people are normal folk who would probably run in fear from your blog should they ever stumble upon it.
Nice.
But, I used to power lift. That's actually how I met you. I was telling Bryce, I think I met you the first time Raw Unity, like 5 years ago in Tampa when they used to have it here, before they moved it to bumfuck wherever in Florida.
Oh, were you with a girl?
Yeah, I was with my girlfriend at the time.
Yeah. Yep, we were standing by the door.
Yeah, and we pointed out some people and had some good laughs. It was good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. That was the only rum that I enjoyed the one in Corpus Christi as well, but all that Port St. Lucie bullshit was nonsense.
Yeah, like nobody wants to go to Port St. Lucie, wherever. God, I don't even remember where that place is, and I've been there before.
I just saw there's some other Fed is now doing a meet in Port St. Lucie, and our RPS is doing one, and I was like, what the fuck for?
Oh, God, why? Like, why would they choose there? Like, what's in Port St. Lucie? That's why the sport deserves a little bit of derision, because like you have it at these places like that, and nobody knows where these places are.
Yeah, that was the Super Bowl of powerlifting. I mean, the easiest place to have a meet and the best place to have a meet would be Vegas in the off season.
Yeah, it would.
It costs $100 to fly there. Hotels are practically free. Like, they're going to be giving away space to do it.
Plenty of brothels.
Exactly. There's plenty of places to have an after party. We tried to have an
There you
after
go.
party in Port St. Lucie, and we ended up going to the most horrible strip club I've ever been to, at which point I started taking off my clothes and got up on the stage, and then all of us did. So we started stripping, and the strippers were hitting on us. And, but it was a shit show, and then we went to Denny's, because that was the only place that was open.
Well, I mean, that's what you do in Podunk, Florida. You go to Denny's, because that's all we have.
But we have powerlifting nowadays has kind of become a joke of whose system is better, and like all these very complicated systems. Now, you said something in the doc here about conjugate system. Could you go ahead and explain what that is for the people?
Sure. The conjugate system is something that was developed by the Russians, and I guess it could be called the conjugate system / periodization. So Olympic weightlifters, they came up with this rotation of exercises that they could do, and then they'd set out blocks of training periods for them. The entire thing has no application to modern training, in my opinion, because the reason why they had to do this was because it was the Soviet era. When guys would go home from training camp, they would have no access to food and no access to a gym. So they'd come back into training camp, detrained, half-starved, and they'd have to walk them through some bullshit workouts and feed them a bunch just to get them ready to start working out. So they'd have all this build-up to the end point that has no application in the modern day unless you're coming out of a fucking coma.
And they didn't have Instagram grinding photos posted? How did they make it
Oh
through
my
it?
god. I've started unfriending people for doing #grind. If I see #grind, immediate unfriend on fucking Instagram. That is the goddamn.
That or hustle.
I'm ornery today. I just want to pick up this table and throw it in a fucking window, thinking about assholes. I'm gonna #grind. Go kill yourself.
But what's your opinion on the just overcomplication of just going in there and picking up a barbell? I mean, some people, some people, have to have a plan before they go in there to do even the basics. What do you think about that?
It's like Jamie was saying, that all that stuff that the Russians did back in those days, like all the research that was gleaned from it, it applies to a very small minority of people who were living in those conditions and whatnot, right? And I think if you take that and you apply it en masse to a lot of people, especially now, like it's just not a smart thing to do. I mean, having a little bit of a plan of what you're going to train that day is usually pretty smart, but if you're not feeling it or if you can't hit the numbers you want, you should probably suck it up and do something else and save it for another day, in my opinion. Or, I mean, if you got records on the line, fucking do it anyway. Fucking lift and try to lift better than you did last time.
There you go. So you do believe in constant linear possession, or do you believe in back off and work back up, or how would you go about doing that?
This is why I like Louis Simmons, because he believes you can progress in something every time you go train. So from what we know of the West Side system, based on what people have written about it, they go in and they'll train a lift and work up to like a heavy triple to get a PR. Like it could be like a board press or a press from the pins and inside the power cage, and then they'll do that like 2 weeks, and then they'll move on to another thing. So they're always making progress in something that's similar to what they need to do. In this case, a shortened range of motion bench press, which will have some carryover to a competition lift, and then they'll move on and keep progressing as such. And then whenever it's time to practice specifically, they will do that.
Yeah, and something I've personally started doing in my training is and I think a lot of people would think this is stupid, but doing like a what I feel is close to my 1 rep max for that day, and then backing down to my working sets off of how that 1 rep max felt.
And I believe that's like a Bulgarian system type thing, if I'm not mistaken. Jamie,
it's what John Brose does, and the Bulgarians do it. I think it's a great way to auto-regulate, because that gives you a good idea of where you stand. And you'll have all these assholes talking about how, that's ego lifting and blah blah. Well, ego lifting is the ego is what drives every great person to be great. And ego lifting is also what everybody up until the internet era has been doing for their entire lives. It works. And guess what? These internet lifters fucking blow. And the reason why? Because there's no balls. There's no balls at all anymore. Like, these kids don't have a drop of testosterone in them. And they think that they can just, waddle through their workout following some chart, and that's going to get them where they need to go. It's nonsense.
Yeah, and the people who excelled at this, they got to a point where they knew enough about their bodies to know that maybe, their ego lifting for that particular day is not going to be the same as it was, on Tuesday. Like, they're not going to hit the same 1 rep max every single day, because that's just not how strength training works, and that's not how you're not going to stay in the same condition like constantly.
And that's why linear progression is nonsense, because we're not robots. There's absolutely no physiological reason why you should be able to add 5 pounds over a specific period of time based on when the sun rises and sets. That's absurd.
Yeah, and people going into the gym expecting that often give up in the next 6 months anyway. So
75% of the people who start training give up in the first 3 months anyway. So
yeah,
that is also true.
But I will say that one of the things I really admired about the early powerlifting is it really didn't matter. Like, you got that fucking weight up, right? Everybody it was almost like a brotherhood. You were cheering each other on and everything like that. And even though, and this will lead us into our next thing, because I know Jamie wants to know my opinions on geared lifting, but we'll put a cap on that for right now. I know Jamie's about to have an aneurysm right now that I mentioned geared lifting. But back then, like in the 80s, 90s, 70s, you know, people actually wore denim jeans to help them squat more. To, you know, used to wrap their fucking joints with ace bandages and stuff like that before geared lifting was a thing. And you know,
yeah, another thing they used to do is they'd the guy who held the 181 wrapped record up until like 5 years ago. His last name was Frado. His first name was Tony, I think. As it turns out, I met some old head in the gym a few years ago who told me this story. The guy was he was a hitman from the mafia in Pittsburgh, and he had this trick that he would use. He would wrap his knees once in ace bandages, have the judges check him, and then he would put a tennis ball behind his knee and wrap him again with another ace bandage.
Damn. Okay.
Yeah. Give him more pop.
Yeah, and this was you know, this was before they made the distinction of raw versus geared lifting. So literally, you can go in and do whatever you wanted to get that edge. You know, the people were doing coke in the back too, probably. In fact, definitely.
But they, when I was at WPO meets, I've never seen that at a raw meet, but at the WPO meets in the '90s and the WPO's back, I saw guys doing speed at meets, but and like blood just gouting out of their nose while they're doing, like, you know, every time somebody attempts something over 900, I mean, they're just spraying everybody down. There's blood pouring down their chest. Like, the WPO is fun as hell, but it's like a circus. But it's, and I was just discussing this with a geared lifter, and he agrees. Geared lifting is not powerlifting. It's something else entirely.
Yeah. Well, you know, not to derail it or anything, but I really do love those pictures of those guys back in the day and those old. Do you remember those old denim, like, cut off all circulation in your body powerlifting suits?
Yes.
Anybody remember those? Those were fucking awesome, and there's a reason they stopped selling them. Because people were just fucking, they couldn't get out of them. They were fucking passing out and shit. It was fucking cool. It was brutal, one of the more brutal days of powerlifting, but
occlusion training. That's what they were doing.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Yeah, how many reps of tempo training occlusion? What did I say? Shit,
I don't even recall.
But it's all the fads. But
all the fads mashed into one.
Yeah, we'll cover those in another podcast. But when it comes to geared lifting, you know, my opinion is like, you know, okay, you lifted that geared, right? Fine, cool. And like Peter said, it's a different thing. It's not, because powerlifting and geared powerlifting is just about getting the most amount of weight up. Fuck your body, fuck your joints, fuck everything. I mean, it requires
fuck your own actual strength, because that doesn't really factor into it. Like, I loved the movie Robot Jocks back in the day. Like, I remember cutting school so that I could watch Robot Jocks and Robot Wars all day one day. But, yeah, somehow I don't feel like driving a giant robot is powerlifting.
But I also would like both of your opinions on what do you consider geared, because that is also a little bit controversial depending on who you ask. So
I will say even knee reps are retarded, because like you look at guys like Kevin Oak. He squats, I don't know, like 782 or something like that at 180 or 198. I don't remember exactly what the numbers are, but it's a full 100 pounds he's got on his unwrapped squat, and it's like, what's the point of that? It's ridiculous. Or that wasn't Kevin Oak, that was somebody else, but that was
I'm sure somebody will.
The guy, the 181 pounder, he's squatting around 700 without wraps and close to 800 with wraps. And I just don't see the point.
Yeah, it's like what was the difference between Mendelssohn's bench shirt versus his raw bench? Like 300 plus pounds.
Yeah.
And like, you know what's crazy too is, like, you know, 700-pound raw bench is, you know, that's still pretty good. Like, you really gotta put the shirt on just to prove a point.
Yeah.
I'm amazed he lived through dropping 1,000 pounds in his chest. I mean, that's impressive in and of itself. But
yeah, that's actually kind of awesome.
I mean, if you're wearing a squat suit or a bench shirt and a squat suit, I'm sure somebody could kick in the door and shoot you in the chest with a 9mm, and you'd probably live through it. So, I mean, those fucking things will stand up on their own. It's like they do everything but lift it for you.
Oh, so you like it tight then? No, So bringing us back, what is your definition of geared, Peter? Just to get that in there.
I think when you start getting into the plies of the suits, and then you start having to get other guys helping you get into your suit, I think that's when it starts getting a little, getting a little bit ridiculous. Like the first meet I ever did, way back when, it was a raw and mixed meet, which of course took fucking forever, and everybody was there till like midnight from 9 a.m. It was just watching these people hang on the monolith while their friends literally shoved them into these fucking ridiculous suits. It's like, man, come on, you have to do this just to lift that weight?
Well,
this is ridiculous to me.
It's just like those guys lifting 135 snorting ammonia. I mean, what the fuck is the point?
Yeah, and if you like doing it, I mean, you fucking do it. But I mean,
to be fair,
come on.
So, and both of you, knee sleeves and elbow sleeves. What are your opinions on those?
The reason I never used any of that shit was because when I first started doing it, I was poor as fuck and I didn't want to spend the money on it. That was it. So I was like, if I train the way that I should be okay without them, and that's pretty much led me, through all my the powerlifting I did.
Yeah.
And then eventually I got a belt, and that was kind of nice, but that's about as far as I went with it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I only wear a belt during my competition squats. I never wear a belt in training. Not even when I'm doing 1,100 pounds on a partial squat. I still don't wear a belt. I use wrist wraps, but that's because I have tiny hands and tiny wrists, and like my wrists will start killing me after a while, especially on Klokov presses. But I mean, I have elbow sleeves. I've used them a couple of times. Yeah, they might give me I can get an extra rep on 315, but I don't know. They're just a pain in the ass. And I wear knee sleeves in meets, and that's it.
What just annoys the shit out of me is people who rely on elbow sleeves and knee sleeves to go into the gym to lift. It's with the exception with people that have arthritis or something. They have a little bit of a, like they're already fucked anyway, right? Like they need to warm up the joint or what have you, right? But it annoys me to see people go in there with this gigantic gym bag with all the wraps, all the fucking accessories in the world, and still not even put 225 on the bar. That just annoys me for some reason.
I mean, that could. I really think that comes down to, especially in strength sports. I don't know about bodybuilding these days. I mean, you guys got those fucking idiots running around those Bane masks, but
oh no.
In strength sports, there's a lot of people. I mean, they're just posers, is all they are. They want to look like they lift, and so they buy all this elite FTS shit. They have rumble rollers and whatever that little stick is that they rub on themselves.
Yeah.
They love rubbing themselves with sticks, and they're stretching and they're doing all this and that and the other thing, and they never actually get down to the business of lifting. But they've got all the accoutrement around them, so they appear as though they might at some point actually begin lifting. But I know I'll go through a full hour and a half long workout, and this guy's still fiddle fucking around with his little stick. I mean, I keep waiting to see how far he can get it up his ass, but he never actually puts on a show for me, so I'm a little disappointed with that.
Just meet him in the locker room, man. But
I'm always impressed with those chicks that you see in the videos, and they pull this huge butt plug out, and then it's like 18 inches of dildo comes out after that. It's like, my God, that's
incredible.
A feat. It's better than a clown car. Yeah,
incredible. So
that's really more like straightening out your intestines, because it's always anal.
Hey, there's that woman that lifts. She's actually in the Guinness World Record book. She lifts the most with her vagina, and she fucking sits there, and she looks like a fit chick, right?
What, doing Kegels?
But yeah, she does this insane. I'm gonna send you some links, but it's pretty fucking cool. Some pelvic floor control. I mean, damn. But anyway, to bring it back around, because we've been off on a tangent here. But going back part way, when you were asking about geared lifting versus not geared lifting, when you were talking about the old school lifters, like in the time of like Pat Casey, for instance, I just wrote about him. Those guys used to take if they were
they went by weight. So if you were one of the weaker lifters, you would do your lifts long before Pat Casey would get there, and he might end up doing his 3 attempts all in a row. So it's like Pat Casey, and then they call his name again. Pat Casey's up there with like 622. Then Pat Casey's up there with 630, and he took the lift off himself.
Yeah.
So I mean, powerlifting and it was a 2-second pause in his chest. So you're talking about a guy who unracked the weight by himself, had to pause it for 2 seconds on his chest, and return it back to the rack. I mean, that's an entirely different thing than we're talking about people now with like an arch that reduces their range of motion to 3 inches, and like they're getting a hand off, and all this other shit. So, and then you got RPS now that is allowing for world record attempts like 6, 7, 8, 9 attempts if you keep breaking the world record incrementally. So
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I mean, powerlifting's just gone insane. And then you got the WPO's fun because they turn it into a circus, and on the other hand, you got people who are trying to turn powerlifting into a fucking tea party. You can't curse at meets. You can't do this at meets. You can't do that at meet. You have to wear their meet T-shirt. What is going on? Like, powerlifting used to be done in a bar. Like you'd get hammered and lift some weights at the same time. Like, what are we doing?
You and I talked about this. Is this because they started bringing like Jesus and shit into a lot of these federations? Like everywhere I go now, it seems like there's like this Christian overtone to all the powerlifting meets. Like it's noticeable.
Like I was saying, that's been around a long time. I told you, one of Jesse Kellum's fans came up to me and told me Jesus hated me at the meet, and I was just like, all right, well, let me eat shit. But and like. I mean, I don't know Jesse Kellum, but I've heard stories about like all kinds of crazy stuff he used to do, like felonious acts of attacking passersby and things for no reason. It's like, now you're all about Jesus? All right, I mean, do what you want. But and again, I don't know these things to be a fact. These are just stories I've heard.
But you know what? It was funny because bringing it back to the Jesus thing. One of my friends, he used to be a touring strongman, right? Of course, he's a raging atheist too. And but back in the day, these what was it, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes or whatever would come and blow up the hot, and they would need to take these long rest periods, so they would just pray and make it part of the show, which I always thought was pretty clever and a little bit fraudulent.
It is amusing that that's the way they get people into Jesus, but they made fun of that on Workaholics. It was pretty funny. They all ended up being gay.
Yes, they did. I fucking love that show.
Well, hey, you know what? I live in the South, so I can't fucking say shit about any of this stuff. So
do I. Hey, not far away from where I live is a town that I grew up in called Plant City, and that place is they used to have snake handlers and shit back in the day there. It's Protestant as fuck.
Hell yes. Did you hear about that snake handler that recently passed away?
That's not Protestant, that's Pentecostal.
Yeah, that's Pentecostal.
Well, I mean, technically non-Catholics are Protestant, but that's, if my memory serves me correctly, but yeah, they're Pentecostals.
Oh.
And we have a fucking lot of Pentecostals over in Plant City.
Wow, lucky you. Yeah, I'd be moving to Austin too, or really anywhere else.
Well, just to bring it back around, Jesus was pretty ripped in most of his things, so let's talk about bodybuilding.
He did have great abs.
Yeah. But, when it comes to bodybuilding, I mean, Peter, you're a coach, right? I mean, you've seen some ridiculous shit when it comes to bodybuilding specifically, because powerlifting has its own thing. At least they factor in the big three, the squat, the bench, the deadlift, and then the other accessory bullshit or how they do it is just how they do it. Right?
Yeah.
For bodybuilding, I mean, you got to work your fucking neck, You got to fucking do those fucking useless forearm curls, in my opinion, anyway.
If you got to work neck, somebody ought to inform Flex Wheeler about that.
Oh, man. Shots fired.
Hey, I like the gym I go to because they have a 4-way neck machine, and the thing looks like an old as fuck piece of bondage equipment, and that's pretty much how everything in that gym looks. So, it's a pretty cool place.
Yeah.
Nice.
for bodybuilding and whatnot. But and I don't know, like, I'm a big fan of forearm training just because, the same guy who was making fun of the praying strongman, he's a fucking grip strength athlete. So I learned a lot of cool shit from that, and how to get strong hands and at the same time, decent set of forearms.
I prefer gripper work to actual forearm training, like the old school bodybuilding. You know, doing the wrist curls, doing the reverse wrist curls. I'm not really a fan of that. I'm more a fan of grip training. You know.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, I think from a health standpoint, not to get too nerdy or care about too much of what people do, but training your hands, especially your thumb, it can go a long way for your overall strength.
Yeah,
I've really found that the best forearm pump I've ever gotten was actually from using the scoop method, fingering a girl, like getting 3 fingers in there, and you get the scoop in there to hit the G spot. I get a crazy pump doing that.
Hey, there you go. Whatever you can do for gains is worth it, right?
That's what it's all about. Pete, you should recommend that to the grandmas that you're training.
I'll get right on that.
I actually trained one elderly person. He owned the gym where I was a trainer, and he shit his pants while I had him doing wall squats with a Bosu ball, and I was like, and I'm done.
Luckily, I don't actually train people on the internet. I'm a douchebag online coach now, so I don't have to like get up in the morning and do anything anymore.
Oh, okay. Email me some progress pictures. Okay, you're eating like an asshole. Stop that. Okay. I know that's oversimplifying it, but
a little bit, but
yeah. But no, bodybuilding has some of the most ridiculous overcomplications in training because it. Where are you both at in placing your feet differently on the leg press to grow your teardrop?
Oh God, like I place my feet where they're comfortable.
Yeah, I feel that like if you're trying to focus on your teardrop, the angle of your toes on leg extensions is actually probably the most meaningful difference you could make.
That's actually true, and I like what you wrote about the other day about because like you back in the day, I used to fucking make fun of people using leg extensions, but when I started doing them and especially adding in some isometric holds every now and again, my quads got better. They look better.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And,
well, I hate to disappoint you both, but I'm of the opinion that nobody really has enough muscle mass to kind of implement that in the correct way to begin with. I mean, they sit there and they worry about their leg placement or their toe placement on the leg press, but they don't worry about getting in the adequate weight or volume in order to induce growth.
Yeah, and that's it.
I'm thinking that we've already figured out everything else, and we're just trying to fine tune the thing. When you're talking about a person who doesn't know to add extra weight, then we're talking about a person I'm not going to give advice to anyway.
Yeah, and like the problem is too, like somebody will ask like a question like that on the internet, and you can't really overcomplicate it for anybody else that you're trying to help, especially
right.
if they haven't thought about it or done it as much as like like any of us have. So I'll say something like do this, put your feet there and just go to town with volume, and then some other fucking dork will come in and start talking about shear forces and shit like that and studies and things like that, and it's like, man, this is not going to help them at all. Like
they don't need to worry about that yet. They just need to worry about getting the movements.
Yeah, it's like when you start doing that kind of dumb shit, that's just way counterproductive. And like, man, especially in the what they call the evidence-based crew of internet trainers. Like, oh God, they're so guilty of it, man. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Like, just focus on one thing and get good at it. And like whenever people ask me for sets and reps on something, it's just like, do a shitload of it.
Yeah.
Just do a fucking lot of it.
See, and that's why I'm glad that I had you and both you and Jamie on, because a lot of our audience that we have is either people who have been lifting for less than 5 years, or people that are kind of older in the game and already know this stuff. But the people who have been lifting for less than 5 years, you need to concentrate on just building size and building up the tolerance to volume, building the right motor patterns. You need to get in there and you need to do the movements and not concentrate on your fucking toes.
Yeah, and just fucking do a lot of it. That's like what it comes down to, and that's why like the old bro style training with tons of drop sets and shit like that, I think it's fantastic, and it's fun. Yeah. It's fun as shit.
It is fun, and lifting used to be fun, and that's something I keep harping on. But these evidence-based training guys, you know what I think that you really should focus on is actually lifting weights and getting big and strong. Because you know what, intellectual masturbation to PubMed doesn't get you big or strong, or really lend any credence to anything you ever say. I mean, is there other than Mike Tusherer, who I'm certain is a robot, is there anybody else in that like vein of people who has ever amounted to anything?
Fuck, my plans for the year. I was going to masturbate to 12 or to PubMed when we got off here. Sorry. Shit.
But there's like a couple. Like, that's why, I like hanging out with Lane Norton. He's an evidence-based guy, but he's also set some world records.
Yes.
He set I forget exactly what. It was a deadlift record, I believe, at somewhere in Finland. It was like a couple years ago, and he set a deadlift record.
Well, I always get Lane Norton confused with that glute guy who, he was the glutes guy and he couldn't squat for shit. It always cracked me up. What is that guy's name?
You're talking Brett.
Yes. Contreras?
Yes.
I believe so, yes. But I've actually followed Lane for a while now, and great guy and all that stuff, and I'm sorry to see his Carbon products go, but but yeah, he's a great, and BioLane's a great source for information too. I like what you've written over there, by the way, Pete.
He had a product called Carbon.
Carbon.
It was Carbon.
Yeah.
Carbon. It was spelled Carbon.
Oh, because I was thinking if there's somebody that needs to be killed with a car bomb, it might be Brett Contreras, because I can't stand watching people doing those hip thruster things all the time. That has to be the most useless exercise that has ever been invented. And I credit him with that because I'd never heard of it before him.
He did make it popular, and I, for one, am actually kind of a fan of it, but not because I believe that it'll have like the greatest athletic carryover, but if you want to grow a big ass, I mean, you can do it. It's hip extension. It's just like
you
a
can
deadlift.
You can do the same thing with wide stance squats. And I'd much rather watch a chick in yoga pants do wide stance squats than hip thrusters with 135 pounds in her lap.
I personally like high bar squats for glute development. Olympic lifters have it right in that regards. I mean, for fuck's sake.
I agree, and front squats do it for me, and as well, the guys I learn a lot from, and the guys I have coach me, they're kind of old school bro guys, but they're also like insanely smart. They'll put squats at the end of like a fuck ton of volume of leg extensions, leg curls, and lunges. So that's the very last thing I wind up doing are the squats, and Jesus, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible.
I actually finished a couple of workouts recently with that butt blaster machine. I'm not making this up. The one where the chicks always do, where you just shove your foot back.
Yeah, that thing's great.
I almost passed out fucking the other day from that because my ass cramped up so bad. I literally almost passed out. That thing works like crazy.
Dude, that thing's awesome, and yet so many people like to make fun of it, even though if you're gonna compete in bodybuilding, especially if you're older, and you've been training a while, why would you not do that?
And kickbacks are also pretty cool too. So,
what, tricep kickbacks?
No, donkey kickbacks. You see, fitness girls do them all the time on Instagram and stuff.
Oh,
you can do the
cables?
same thing. You can do the same thing with a cable for some resistance.
I mean, I'll watch them do that. I have no problem watching them.
And that's kind of my same rationale for enjoying exercises like the hip thrust, because you can really hammer away the volume on a given body part. Eventually, whenever you're squatting and you do a shit ton of squats, your form's going to degrade too much.
If you're not getting your hip thrusts in on Friday night, you probably don't need to get them in anyway. I mean, what's the point?
Also, another topic of bodybuilding that I'd like to kind of discuss, because we've seen kind of a shift in the industry from everybody wanting to be a bodybuilder or a fitness guy to everybody wanting to be a powerlifter, and bodybuilders now adapting powerlifting programs in order to get the bodybuilding look. And I think the answer lies somewhere in between. If you like bro splits, do bro splits. There's nothing wrong with bro splits. And anyone who tells you any differently, I mean, I don't know what to say. But if you like doing upper-lower, or you like doing, your typical powerlifting program, and you're getting good results from it, do that. So what do you guys think about all that?
Yeah, and I mean, you could take like a strength training template, where you get stronger at the big three, and you could just throw in a couple things for extra volume to enhance the aesthetics, like throw in some lateral raises for your shoulders, because
I think Ronnie did that, didn't he?
Ronnie Coleman?
Yeah.
Probably. I think he's in the hospital now, or he just had surgery or some shit.
No, I meant back when he was competing, man. Talking about Big Ron in the squat suit. Big Ron in the squat suit. Yeah, buddy. So.
I know Johnny Jackson probably did, because he was like one of the first guys I ran into that I read about, who was known for being like a decent powerlifter and a decent bodybuilder. Do you guys remember him?
Yeah, I mean, there a lot of bodybuilders had powerlifting backgrounds. I mean, the sports used to be completely intertwined, and I think that's where I was going to go with it. Is I think that everybody ought to cross-train between at least between strongman, powerlifting, and bodybuilding. I think that the ultimate physique is built out of combining those three things. Because, you got the guys who do just straight bodybuilding always end up with very boring physiques. The guys who are powerlifters always end up with flat shoulders, generally unbalanced physiques, and usually look like hell.
Yeah, they got that monkey posture because they fucking bench press too much, and they don't.
Yeah, and they can't do a single pull up.
They can't. Exactly, they can't do a fucking pull up, and they walk around like that. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that the best physiques are going to come. Like, you look at guys like Marvin Eder back in the day, or Pat Casey, or the list goes on and on of guys who were insanely strong, and they had great physiques.
And that's why I like fucking Franco, because Franco Columbu was strong as a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
And I think he should have won the overall in pumping iron instead of Arnold, but that's just me.
Well, hey man, that's already said and done. I know people have a lot of thoughts on that, but
I think Mike Menzer should have won. So there.
Well, I think in a lot of ways Mike Menzer did win at life.
There you go.
Depending on how you look at it.
Because he turned into a speed freak who would just hole up in his house and do nothing but write and eat ding-dongs. And, I mean, how do you end up a speed freak and fat? That takes a special kind of failure.
Well, you know who else did that too, right? Jim Jones, when he was doing the People's Temple down in Guyana, he was doing tons of speed, and he got fat. And they
went on a great length about that on last podcast on the left.
Yes, and it was a very nice refresher from when I actually learned about it back when I was in college. I actually thoroughly enjoyed that episode of all 5 of those goddamn episodes of that particular episode.
There are very few things about last podcast on the left I don't love.
Yeah, super. It's probably one of the best podcasts out there right now.
Yeah, thanks to Hatecast, but
yeah. Oh, hey, since we're talking bodybuilding, what do either of you guys know about this guy Akeem Williams, who's supposed to be the strongest bodybuilder now?
I've never heard of the name. Should I look him up on Instagram? I bet he's got an Instagram, doesn't he?
He probably does have an Instagram. I just bought a Flex magazine for the first time in years today, and he's in there. He's got a great physique. He's got that old school X frame, even though he's super thick. Like, he has a small waist, and his lifts are pretty impressive. I'm flipping through trying to find him again. I know he's got like an 800-pound squat.
Jesus.
Yeah.
But I think if he's got a good physique and he's got that strength, I mean, like, a lot of the best bodybuilders were also insanely strong, like Ronnie Coleman and Franco and even Arnold. Oh yeah.
Yeah, Dorian Yates, super strong.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, that guy was insane.
But just to bring it back around, before I bring it back around and kind of wrap this training portion up, what do you guys? Okay.
Real quick though, I found it. He's at a 550 bench, 850 deadlift, and 815 squat.
That's pretty good, and he's not a powerlifter. Like, he doesn't compete for powerlifting.
Nope.
IFBB Pro.
Yep.
Shit, see, those are the kind of guys you want to go and enter a meet on a whim and just fuck everybody's shit up.
Yeah, I mean, Johnny Jackson did it at the Red Rum in Corpus Christi.
Nice.
Yeah, he set a world record.
But real quickly, I know there's been a lot of gadgets and gadgets that have come out in the past few years, and I'd like to hear both your opinions on this right before we wrap up the training portion. So, the first one is, Jamie mentioned it earlier, training mask.
Oh, God, where to even start? You know, and I don't really see that at the gym too often. I saw it when I was doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu because martial artists will literally try anything. No matter how fucking stupid it is, they will try it.
They'll try anything except for lifting heavy, which for some reason they are all too.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And you know, some of them won't even lift. Now, the only one I know who doesn't lift, but who's also one of the best grapplers in the world, is Marcelo Garcia. But, you know, since he's not lifting, he's probably fucking practicing jiu-jitsu all the time and not worrying about dumb shit like training masks and all that. But yeah, like, I first saw that in martial arts, and I was like, man, this can't be doing what it says it's doing. And as it turns out, based on the, oh shit, there's a dog in the background. But
Don't worry about it.
But as it turns out, yeah, they are pretty useless according to the actual scientific literature on it.
Yo, you might want to pause it real quick. I'm sorry.
That's okay. We will be right back. Now, we're live again. Hey.
All right.
So yeah, we were talking about the training mask and how, you know, I saw it in the martial arts gyms and how, like, you know, they'll do literally any dumb fuck thing out there for an edge. And, you know, the scientific literature actually shows that the masks are fucking useless.
Jamie,
Well, I mean, everybody was wearing those magnetic bracelets for a while, too.
Yeah, I mean,
the copper ones?
I remember that, too, and you know, something about that said to me, you know, that's probably bullshit, too, back then.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're the same kind of people who pray to crystals.
I mean, I saw one in my gym, and what I ended up witnessing was something of sheer stupidity. So this guy was doing dips, and he did dips, and then he went and ran on the treadmill for a little bit, like he was training to be Apollo Creed, right? And then he fucking went over and did dips again, and then he went back over, and he just fucking passed out, right? Because the mask is literally like breathing through a straw. Whoever tells you that breathing through a straw will increase your performance has something wrong with them. Do not listen to that person. Please.
Well, I think the idea was that you train breathing through a straw like you train for high-altitude training so that it will increase your VO2 max, and then when you're at sea level, you'll have a better...
Yeah, you'll be better. You know, it's supposed to replicate the high altitude training, but the fact that the air is the same, you're just, you know, you're just working more to take in the normal air doesn't really factor out like that.
Well, that's kind of like people freaking out over antibiotics in chicken, when in actuality the antibiotics are dead by the time they get to your plate.
Right.
It's nonsense. I mean, it makes sense if you play some mental gymnastics. But it's just nonsense, you know? I mean, it's conspiracy theorists kind of like, oh, this training mask is going to make me so much, but no. And all these athletes wearing these training masks and pushing them, just realize that you are, you know, you're basically pushing that on that kid with asthma who's trying to work out a little bit. So, stop it. Like, those are the kind of people that, like, one death and those things are pulled off the fucking market. Like, that's you know, that's me in the nightmare scenario mode, though.
It's like it's like this generation's fucking Thigh Master or some shit.
Or those, you ever seen that video of the 1940s or whatever fucking gym? And they sit there and they have those machines that go up and down the girl's thighs, and they sit there and they rub, and then they jiggle them, and then they rub, and then they jiggle them, and then they sit on this wheel that turns and turns and massages their butt to make their butt toned, you know? It's that same exact shit. And it does irk me a little bit, if you can tell in my voice. But it's okay. It's okay to bring it back around.
Before you go anywhere else, I just got to bring this up because you mentioned the guy with asthma wearing this training mask.
Yeah.
So there's this guy who has been emailing us at Chaos and Pain, and he was asking about pre-workouts, And then he told me that he was taking Riot, and like he was wondering if it was that or the beta blockers that was improving his sexual prowess. And I was like, definitely not the beta blockers. And if you're taking beta blockers, you should not be taking Riot. And so he proceeds to tell me that like he stopped taking the beta blockers because they lower your test levels, and now he's about to go on D-ball and test. And I'm like, you're just going to kill yourself.
What?
And I keep telling him, I'm like, you're just suicidal. Like, stop doing all the things you're doing.
Yeah. No, that's not a good idea.
That to me is ridiculous.
I'm
like
speechless.
Everything about what you just said.
And he just keeps arguing with me, and he's like, "Oh, my blood pressure's normal generally," and it's like, I literally am legally obligated to tell you not to take anything and just go to the doctor. Just go to the hospital.
No shit. That is kind of a nightmare scenario on its own, and we'll talk about that a little bit on the podcast. You know, just man, those kind of people. If you know, we do apologize. We try and answer absolutely every single question that we get. But when it comes to stuff like this individual, you know, we've said what we need to say, and I don't think there's any more that needs to be said, man. Just, you know, really, that's to the point where you should consult the doctor. But I would not suggest adding a training mask to that either. So
no. But I mean, at this point, you might as well. Like, yeah, just go ahead and just mainline some Riot and put on that training mask and whack back a fistful of D-ball and see how long your heart lasts.
Sarcasm, but
maybe do some HIIT training while you're at it. Go join Orange Theory. Orange Theory plus training mask plus D-ball plus test plus a boatload of Riot equals imminent heart attack.
You got to do this all in a deadlift suit too.
Oh yeah, and get those occlusion bands all over your body.
Hell yeah. And that was the second thing I was going to kind of bring up to you guys. What do you think of occlusion training?
You know, I've never done it.
The science is there. It's miserable. Oh, God, it hurts. It doesn't feel good at all.
Are you familiar with metabolite training, Peter?
No, actually, I'm not. What is it?
Okay. So, basically, you have these metabolites, okay? I'm not going to go into all the science stuff because we can cover that in another podcast. But basically, that intense, just miserable burn that you fucking get, that your muscles are engorged, they're sitting there, they're on fire, and you bang out that last fucking rep. Well, you basically tie a tourniquet around your arm and induce that with lightweight, right?
Yeah, that's the occlusion part, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I've seen like the science on it, and I've seen people do it. I've just never been bothered to try it. Just like maybe if I had an injury, I heard there's some good advantages to it then, but
because you're training lighter.
Yeah.
Honestly, like, and that's what it comes down to is like, kind of bring it back in the overcomplication of training we have in strength training and lifting right now. It's all about this shit. I mean, you sit there and you fucking wrap up your turn. Why don't you just do metabolite training? Why don't you just get to that burn with heavy weights? I mean, there's different ways of skinning a cat, and you're just overcomplicating it. Like, now you got to go out and buy the special occlusion wraps. Now you got to go out and buy this and buy that.
It just comes back to the poser thing again.
Yeah. So
they want to look like they're about it, but they don't want to be about it.
But most people in this day and age of strength training just need to stick to the basics, and they will be fine. Like, get your heavy compound movements in. I mean, Peter, you can probably explain this better. I mean, what would be the simple solution for all of this?
Like you said, and actually, for some reason, like, my call dropped, and I had to call back in as you guys were talking about the occlusion training. That shit was weird.
Sorry.
But no, it's all good. But it's like you said, if most people just focused on the basics, especially like, the people you were talking who are listening, under 5 years training, you can get a lot of mileage out of that. And, and learn how to make the stuff that you're already doing harder. I mean, there's a lot of value to that to get a lot of good results.
Yeah. And nobody does their first 5 years of training perfect anyway. Everybody fucks up, Everybody does way too much shit. They fucking squat for like 12 sets. They can't walk the next day. They can't walk the day after that. They can't walk the day after that. So by the time they get to squat again, it's like 2 weeks later, you know, back when they're feeling it, you know. Those are kind of simple training mistakes that everybody makes when they're first starting, and you can still get mileage after that. I mean, there's even after your first 5 years of training, there's still room to grow because of either the mistakes that you've made or not getting the optimal results and everything like that. But the optimal results will come from sticking to the basics, concentrating on giving enough attention to recovery, which is another neglected thing, neglected aspect of all of this. And just, I mean, don't buy into the fads. You know, you could waste insurmountable amount of time following something that really is just not based in any scientific evidence.
Yeah, and you know, and I think we miss and the powerlifters too. They miss sight of that. Just just hammer on the basics and get really good at them, and then you branch out from there.
Yeah, and speaking of the basics, here's where we go into our impromptu ad spot for, of course, Chaos and Pain. Some of the basics that everybody neglects sometimes is protein, and we do have a fine 5-pound tub of protein just waiting for you to pick it up. I mean, Cannonball Kraken, it is very good tasting. I'm trying to think of more things to say, but it's just a basic that everybody needs. It's just a protein powder just to throw in their gym bag and fucking kill it, you know?
Yep.
You get 20% off by using Bryce20 or any other of the discount codes.
You got thousands of discount codes floating around.
chaosandpain.com, and you won't ever have to worry about meeting your protein needs because you have it right there.
And I have heard, I haven't had it yet, but I've heard that graham cracker flavor is outstanding.
Graham cracker's fire, and you know what? We have 2 more flavors coming. We're not sure when they're going to be here, but we have Fat Boy Glazed Donut. For all you If It Fits Your Macros fans out there. And we have, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Don't have an aneurysm, Jamie.
By the way, I am a If It Fits Your Macros guy.
Oh, good
Oh,
God.
man. Okay, so this is going to be interesting. And we have Red Velvet Cake coming out sometime in the next year. That's all I can say about it, really. Because we're still trying to nail the flavor, just like we did with our re-release of the vanilla, which has come out fantastic.
Oh, Bryce, I didn't know. I don't know if you know this, but the whole Cannibal line started because I had the idea to make a protein powder based on the amino acid profile of human flesh. And Wayne has, in fact, given that the go-ahead, so we will be making that.
Nice.
Fucking really?
Yeah, and I'm going to be illustrating the label personally, so it'll be straight up old school Cannibal Corpse album cover style, gory as hell.
Hey, shout out to Tampa Death Metal.
There it is.
Well, there's your exclusive for the podcast. That's something I didn't even know about.
Yeah, there you go. And also, I'd like anybody to explain to me how Red Velvet Cake differs in flavor in any way from chocolate.
I don't think it does. It's literally just the coloring, right?
Yeah.
Well, okay, so it's like a richer than milk chocolate, mainly in like the artificial flavor stuff, like the because Red Velvet Cake was popular quite a few years back, and we actually had requests to do it. So that's why this thing came to fruition. So we Red Velvet Cake is literally just a darker, richer milk chocolate that's all kinds of red velvety. It's going to be a richer chocolate. It's going to be a richer chocolate.
All right.
That's what it's going to be.
That works.
That's it, basically. So, but I don't know. I've tried a lot of red velvet stuff, and I kind of have the same opinion there. But we shall see if it differs. We shall. But on to the ridiculousness of diet trends. So we will tackle If It Fits Your Macros last, because Peter, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this, and Jamie, I'm sure you have a lot to say about this.
Hey, Tom Platz liked Pop-Tarts. I'm just throwing that out there.
Okay, but let's try...
Tom Platz also rode his bike to and from the gym like 6 miles and did something on the order of 100 sets of squats twice a week. So,
yeah, he's fucking insane.
Yeah.
So let's talk about keto.
I'm a big proponent of keto. Always have been. Cyclical keto, I think, is one of the best ways to diet. I ate that way pretty much nonstop from like 2008 to 2015.
Okay. So would you say that that's specifically, and I know you have the Apex Predator diet.
Yeah, that's a cyclical keto diet. It's a combination of a couple of things, but at its essence, it's cyclical keto.
Okay. So would you say that that's best used for fat loss, or would you say that it's also used in a bulking or lean mass or whatever the kids want to call it nowadays phase?
Yeah, I used it for basically it was a slow gaining program. Over the course of from 2008 to 2015, I went from when I got back from Austria, I was about 170 pounds and real lean. And then I just stayed lean and kept gaining lean mass until now I'm cutting down to 181 from 195. God only knows what I weigh now.
We don't see that jawline.
Yesterday that I was wearing a Ranger Up shirt that's a 2XL and it was skin tight on my arms. So
Jesus.
Yeah.
There you go.
And you're like what? You're like what? 4'8", 4'9"?
Dick. Yeah, I'm 5'6" on a tall day. when the winds are right.
Actually, funny enough, I make fun of the keto diet a lot, mostly because I think the people who promote it a lot, like Jimmy Moore or whatever the fuck his name is, he's like the most unhealthy looking guy on the planet, talking about how great it is. His weight loss isn't happening anymore, and yet he's still promoting like a legit, I forget the percentage for like a legit keto diet, but very low protein, lower carbs, and like high as fuck fat. Right. And when you're telling people that, hey, this is the fucking holy grail of health, that's dishonest at its core. It's fucking fraudulent, and I think people who buy into it and who actually eat at a caloric deficit on keto and like it, good for them. Who doesn't like bacon? You
really don't have to eat at a caloric deficit, though. The way the diet works is you can overeat. The problem is that people are so sedentary. It's difficult to for sedentary people. It's difficult to program anything for them because how do you even have an idea of what their metabolism's doing? They have mayonnaise running through their veins. They're no longer human beings, and I honestly believe that. Fat people are not people. They're just, I don't know what they are, but they're not. I'm not the same species that they are, and I'm not going to try to write a diet for a fat person because it'd be like me trying to write a diet for an alien.
Well, it's not. You'd be surprised. It's not that bad. I actually worked with a guy who was 500 pounds, and then he lost well over half of that because of IIFYM.
Yeah.
Wow. I wouldn't even know how to where do you get rope that bears enough weight to hang him?
Oh,
and
my
then
gosh.
also, where do you find a structure to hang him off of? It's difficult to know. I'd have to be out there with equipment testing, and it would be.
I think that's getting a little harsh, but no, he needed to change his life, and he fucking did it. That's.
Well, I will say kudos to him because
my method would change his life as well. Although I just realized you wouldn't even need to really tie a noose because it would just rip his head off anyway, with his body that fat.
All right,
Jesus
all right.
Christ.
It'd be like popping the head off a tick.
So yeah, he came to the gym and we worked out, and he realized that he could have whatever he wanted, just not as much as he wanted. Which to get to where you're 500 pounds, that's you wind up eating a lot at some point in your life.
What is your fitness starting point for that? Because I know Richard Simmons, there was one guy who started, he just was clapping, sitting on the couch, clapping along with Richard Simmons. Is that kind of where you started with this guy, or what?
For him, it was just eating less food at first. It was literally just eating less. And, and that's where it started. And then, you have to find out, what are you willing to do right now as far as activity, because it is good to move, and you don't want to, like you said, you don't want to be sedentary, right? What are you?
It is good to move.
Yeah, so like, what you have to meet them where they are and find out, hey, what are you willing to do, and let's see if we can get you to do that, and then maybe do some more and more and more and all that good stuff. And so
See,
it's like a process. It's not like the switch goes off and says, hey, I need to change, and then you figure out how to change, and everybody knows whether they admit it or not. Everybody knows what foods what food is good, what foods are bad, to use those terms that I typically don't. But you know what people know how to eat like an asshole or not eat like an asshole at the end of the day. They know vegetables are good, in theory. Whether they practice it or not, that's completely different. But they know vegetables and shit are good for you. And
but what do you think about keto?
if it helps somebody stay compliant, then they should do it.
That's my opinion on it too. I mean, just like you said with that 500-pound individual. Look, I used to be 430 pounds before I cut down to like a sickly-looking 178.
Yeah,
Right?
you did?
Yeah, and I did that without any surgery, without any everything. See, but I didn't know why I got fat in the first place. Turns out I had a genetic mutation when it comes to my interactions with ghrelin and my interactions with
Leptin.
leptin. Yes, leptin.
So
And
ghrelin is the one that determines whether or not you have satiety, correct?
Yes.
correct.
They call it the hunger hormone.
And
And
leptin
then
does the same
leptin-
thing in
Yeah.
fat cells, basically. Fat cells kind of shoot out leptin, saying, "Hey,
So you're like a reverse X-Man.
I am like a competitive eater in infancy stage. So if I wanted to, I could do that, right? So I've eaten so much in one meal because when I was at my biggest, and I know this is disgusting, this may give Jamie an aneurysm, but I had 2 full gallons of ice cream, 2 full-gallon jugs of ice cream, 3 X-large pizzas from Domino's, right? I had my mom's spaghetti, hashtag Eminem, but my mom's spaghetti, I had chicken and rice meal, I had, and then it just kind of snowballed. My calculations kind of put me at like 30-something thousand calories that day.
What is
Right.
that disease called that you almost have? Like if you were a tard, you would have it.
It's
They have to cage them because they're violent and they have no satiety, but they have Down syndrome. There was a documentary on it called Rebecca, and her parents had to hire a bouncer to keep her off of them because she would attack them.
I have
Jesus.
no clue. But
Jesus fucking Christ.
so I've
so
pretty
you're
much
one chromosome away from being that.
fuck yeah. Hey, must be where the rage comes in at the gym.
I
But,
guess, yeah.
um,
That's superhuman rage.
There you go. But I've tried pretty much every diet on the face of the earth to lose weight at first, right? Because that's what you do when you're bigger, is you try every fucking diet there is on the
Yeah,
face of the earth.
And linguistically, the word diet sounds good to people because it implies that there's a start and an end where you don't have to do it anymore.
And my opinion on keto is I like higher fats. I cannot function on the traditional keto diet.
Which is the low protein, not quite as low carb, or lower carb, and then super high fat, right?
Right. I start running into a fiber issue and I start running into digestive issues, right? I no longer have a gallbladder, by the way, which is a side effect from losing that much weight. So,
No shit.
Wait, did you just shit out your gallbladder? What happened?
I shit
I'm
it
pretty
all
sure
the
you
way
got it
out.
surgically removed.
Yeah, so I had incredible... So I was at the gym, and I had... This is a little offshoot tangent here, but I'm kind of famous for those. I was at the gym, I was training abs, I went home, fucking laid down, woke up, everything was fine. The next day, my mom's having a garage sale. I'm lifting boxes, and I have this intense abdominal pain. It's just very, 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 like, burning, searing, something stabbing me from the inside. And I'm like, oh, fuck. My first inclination was I tore a muscle or something, right? Because I thought I was going, quote-unquote, hardcore back then. No, I wasn't, and I was an idiot. So I went to sleep and ignored it. And then it got better, and then it got worse, and then it got better, and then it got worse. Turns out, when you lose that much weight, some interesting things happen with the formation of gallstones because of a lack of fat in your diet, right? A dramatic drop in the fat content of your diet. And my body was basically like full to bursting with gallstones. He said if you would have waited an hour later, we wouldn't have been able to get it out of you. You'd have been dead.
Damn.
So it's kind of, scary, but keto didn't work for me, and it won't work for me currently because I do not have a gallbladder. People who do not have gallbladders usually have a hard time, most of the time, absorbing a tremendous amount of fat, right?
Interesting.
Because your liver picks up the slack in that, right? Your liver starts biling up everything, if that's the correct term. I don't correct myself usually. But biling up everything, and in the absence of the gallbladder, so it just
interesting. I was under the impression gallbladder was mostly vestigial.
No, it produces bile, so but anyway.
Oh, and the disease I was talking about that you almost have is Prader-Willi syndrome.
Okay, well, I'll see. I'll get my chromosomes checked. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
But that kind of leads me to the second one, and the second kind of diet that I wanted to kind of talk about with you guys is the glycemic index trash.
Oh, here we go.
Funny story about that, actually. I got a copy of Power Eating by Dr. Susan Kleiner last year, and she said, by the way, ignore this part on page 56 about the glycemic index stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for those of you who are unaware of what the glycemic index is, it's a number, right? Now they're using, I think, Peter, correct me if I'm wrong, glycemic load.
I think that's something else that they go with now as well.
Okay. So, it is specifically for diabetics. The glycemic index is for diabetics, right? So, they, depending on how good or bad it is for diabetics, for instance, they prescribe it a number, right? Or they measure the glycemic index of it, the effects on blood sugar, right? So now they're using glycemic load, but when I was going through my little weight loss thing, the glycemic load, glycemic index kind of diet was around where you just avoided everything that was bad on the glycemic index, right? I'm not sure how long that was popular, but it's complete and utter horseshit for people with healthy pancreases.
Especially because anytime you consume protein or fat with your carbohydrate, you automatically lower the glycemic load on the body. And so the whole thing's not... So you see all these bodybuilders who are yammering on about eating yams, and it's like, my God, man, just eat a white potato. Like, nobody wants to eat yams. Nobody, not even once.
That's funny. I posted about potatoes today on Facebook about how, like, because I heard these two old codgers in the gym talking about sweet potatoes or white potatoes being better, and I'm like, you guys are still pretty hefty. That's not what you need to worry about right now. Like, this is like the farthest thing you need to worry about right now. Like, especially if you're face fucking six donuts every day, you don't need to worry about which type of potato to eat. You just need to stop face fucking the donuts.
Yeah. Or these bodybuilders carrying on about Ezekiel bread. Oh my God! Have you ever tried this? It's like eating alfalfa sprouts out of a hobo's ass.
It's terrible. It's fucking terrible, and there's no salt in it either, or like any preservatives. It's fucking awful. And it's biblical.
To be fair,
so you know how I feel about that.
Yeah.
But, I've tried it. It's not bad to me. But then again, I'm a
you live in the Bible Belt, and you're a bodybuilder, so you're naturally predisposed towards whacking people with the Bible and eating stuff that tastes like alfalfa sprouts that you fished out of a hobo's asshole. So
well, there are better alternatives, I think, for sprouted bread that tastes a little better in my opinion. But Ezekiel bread that's not my favorite.
It's the one most widely available, though. We can all agree on that, right? So
go to Walmart. I can get it anywhere.
Yeah, so that's probably the reason for that. So that leads me on
to... Did you put Walden Farms, sugar-free spread on there with some Mrs. Dash as well?
For fuck's sake. Okay, no, to be fair, you know what? Mrs. Dash, I have some seasoning up here. It's Chipotle Southwest seasoning. It's actually really good.
No, it's not.
Wait a minute.
You know what tastes better than that?
Hold on, I remember you, Jamie, writing about how great Mrs. Dash was years ago. Is that
No,
Oh
not
shit!
I said I used Mrs. Dash prepping for a meet, and I would never do it again. I did not like Mrs. Dash.
I could have
do not
sworn
like
you said it
Mrs.
was good.
No, never.
Okay, well, hey,
I despise Mrs. Dash.
everybody's taste buds are different, man. It's okay.
Well, you apparently have no taste buds. You
Apparently
lost your
have
taste
none.
buds in the great gallbladder battle of
When the weight went
1989
off,
or whatever it was.
when the weight went off, the taste buds went. I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so I'm saving if it fits your macros for last. So what we're going to cover now is eating for performance. You guys a fan?
Okay. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, including because right now it's so the fitness industry and the fitness not industry but culture is kind of cyclical. So if it fits your macros was first around, nobody cared about eating for performance, right? So they went kind of, not to say if it fits your macros are bad or good, but they kind of abused it, if that makes sense. And I think Lane Norton actually talks about that. Am I correct?
Oh yeah, it's all these broads like running around eating donuts and pizza and talking about how they're dieting. No, you're not.
Yeah, and like we said, we know what foods are nutrient rich and which foods aren't, and how to not eat like an asshole. It's just make it fit your calories and your protein needs, and I mean, if you do it right and like if you give a shit about eating enough fiber and protein and all that, it becomes pretty hard to eat 6 donuts in a day because you have those other numbers to hit, and it becomes kind of self-regulating like that, which is why I'm a fan of it. Because
it's also the 90-10 rule. That they always used to talk about in Iron Man magazine. I don't even know if millennials know what I'm talking about, but 90% of the time you stick to your diet, the other 10% of the time you can fuck around and you'll be all right.
Yeah, well, I believe they use 80-20 now, but same shit.
Oh, good God, of course. They got to nerf everything for these millennials. Christ.
But eating for performance has come back around since people like Stan Efferding and Brian Shaw and all these people have kind of made the push to have a bigger YouTube presence, and other podcasts as well. They tend to mention eating for performance is super special. It's super important and everything like that. And I tend to agree with it. I mean, get your sweet potatoes in and it'll help your performance in the gym. I mean, I'm all about that stuff now.
How would a sweet potato help your performance? I'm confused as to what we're talking about.
Over time, I'm talking about people lacking vitamins and nutrients, okay, which they can fix by adding Gaia to their regimen. But hey, I'm talking about performance increases from food. Like, will you perform better if you eat red meat versus protein powder? Or red meat versus soy. Let's just put it that way. Then
that's one of those individual things that you have to keep track of. Like, I'm not going to eat something that makes me feel like a bag of dicks afterwards, even if it does fit my calories.
I will say that there was a guy who, and you guys have probably seen this video. You guys ever seen the video of the real fat guy trying to squat 700 and his leg snaps a quarter of the way through the squat and
hell yeah.
So that guy, I know him, is Brian Bacher. He trains down at Iron Sport in Philly. And he used to keep his eating log on the website at Iron Sport, and I used to read it just out of horror. We're talking about the man would eat 4 packages of hot dogs a day, and then at the end of the night he'd eat 2 pizzas from Pizza Hut. That was his diet. So his bones were brittle as shit because he was living on nitrates and fat. So I mean, there's something to be said for a bulking diet, but he did it in every possible way incorrectly. So, I guess I would think the quality of your food would play into it as well. Not just the macros, but just the actual quality of your food. So say,
right. And whenever I eat a hot dog, usually it doesn't make me feel the greatest, so I fucking don't.
Yeah.
I mean, you're better off eating a fried chicken sandwich.
Also, salt has been demonized too. That kind of pisses me off too. I mean, you remember back in the day when they had, when they kind of, when they'd have athletes or something hurt on the field, they give them little salt packets. You guys remember that?
Yeah, they talked about it on King of the Hill as well.
Yeah. So That's a very, very big performance enhancer that I think people are missing out on nowadays because they want to go low sodium. And it can, after a while, just make you feel like shit. So
yeah, all you have to do is increase. If you feel like if your sodium levels are quote unquote too high, increase the shit out of your potassium. Then you're fine. It's not a matter of you have too much sodium in your body. You can have all the sodium you want. You just have to make sure your potassium levels are high. Try to match
for
it.
healthy individuals, that is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're drinking enough water, and if you're training hard as a motherfucker, like the sodium almost becomes, like irrelevant.
Well, okay. So we've covered all that stuff, and we're saving the best for last. So after this, we will do a wrap up for those of you still listening. So calm down. I know it's a long one.
Settle down, Beavis.
If it fits your macros, is a calorie a calorie? Peter, I'm going to let you go ahead and go first, just to piss off Jamie.
I mean, at the end of the day, scientifically speaking, yeah, a calorie is a calorie.
Okay. And if it fits your macros, what's your views on that?
I'm a fan of it. Like I said, I had the guy, and I've had several other people help drop weight just by adopting a lifestyle of flexibility. Now, that doesn't mean that every one of those people like weighed their food or counted calories and stuff like that. But getting people to where especially the people that I try to reach, getting them to a point where they can feel comfortable having something that's like fucking Oreo cookie or whatever people like, and not feel. And not beat the shit out of themselves about it. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. And we go to Jamie.
No, a calorie is not a calorie. I mean, obviously, scientifically, a calorie is a calorie. However, and I mean, I've written about when I had to go to jail for my DUI. I basically lived on summer sausage and ramen noodles. Was it optimal? Was it optimal? No, but it was the best I could do in terms of like getting all my protein. So you take a person, and I mean, I maintained about 195 pounds, lifting weights 3 times a day or 3 times a week, and doing a ton of like TRX style stuff with that diet. Now, I managed to like completely outperform my diet. But if you were to take 2 people and have their macros be exactly the same and have their training be exactly the same, but you got one guy eating. He doesn't even have to be grass-fed beef because I don't even want to get into the whole organic and non-organic and all that idiocy.
Another podcast.
Just say you're feeding this guy over here steak and tater tots and like steak and tater tots and broccoli, and then the other guy is eating the exact same macros all the way, and even macros. Well, not all the same macros, but we'll say the big macros like sodium, they're the same.
Yeah.
Do you think those 2 people, the steak guy's going to outperform the other guy 10 times out of 10?
I kind of missed a part of it because for some reason it keeps dropping my goddamn call. But So you had the steak and tater tots guy. Who was the other guy?
Ramen noodles and summer sausage. But they have the exact same. They have the exact same macros. Or say you have somebody who's eating donuts and protein powder.
Oh God.
So the same macros, but and same number of calories, same training. But you got donuts and protein powder versus a guy who's eating steak and tater tots and broccoli. Steak and tater tots and broccoli guy is going to trash the other guy every single time.
Well, yeah, because at least the steak and broccoli guy has some fucking micronutrients in there, which is what people don't really talk about when they talk about the IIFYM. Like, yeah, the point is to 80-20, self-regulate.
But I mean, you could still give them animal pack. You can give both people animal pack. The steak guy's still he's still gonna outperform him because I think that the negative shit that goes into the processed food is going to have a negative impact on performance as opposed to the other guy who doesn't have those detractions.
And even that aside, like where the hell's the satiety for the fucking protein powder and donut guy? Like it's almost going to be non-existent. So I mean, based on that alone, you'll probably feel like shit.
People eat emotionally all the time, though. So you're talking about emotional satiety versus
I'm talking about like actually feeling full. Because for all the talk about how whey protein makes you feel sated, I'm hungry like 2 minutes later after I have a shake. Like every single time, like it doesn't do it for me. Even if I make it with milk, I'll last a little bit longer, but still maybe half an hour later, it's like okay, it's time to eat again.
Yeah.
Like, and then to the point of that, it becomes where, like, it's not sustainable. The whole point of IIFYM is to be sustainable. Steak and tater tot guy, you could sustain that.
Yeah, and I've eaten like that, and I was a beast.
Yeah, and plus, I mean, who doesn't fucking love potatoes? Because tater tot potato.
Yeah, for a year, I trained so drunk the entire time that I couldn't even squat because I couldn't stand up with a bar on my back. I was still like 200 pounds and lean, eating nothing but steak and tater tots and chicken fingers and drinking all day long.
That's fantastic.
But
so Bryce, let's hear what. So Bryce, is a calorie a calorie?
Okay, so I eat right now for performance because that's important to me. I would say
you're equivocating right now. So say is a calorie or a calorie, and then you can go on your long spiel.
It's because
you wanted the big reveal.
I can't answer that. I can't answer that really, and I don't think anybody can, see, because the variation in between, you know, what calories consumed and what the body does with it is anybody's guess. You know, because some people like myself, they have no appetite regulation, auto-regulation. So for me, if it fits your macros, works. And calorie counting works only because otherwise I would eat like an asshole, you know. But for other people, it won't work because it's not emotionally healthy, or they just don't get good results from it because they just don't, you know. And diet is largely the best diet is the one that you'll follow, and whatever gets you results is the one that you should be doing. To me, where I'm at right now, if I reduce my calories, I lose weight. But that's because I have no appetite regulation. So, you know, satiating my hunger isn't really top priority for me because I'm always hungry. As for a calorie being a calorie, I haven't really tried it the other way because I have to count calories. So I unfortunately can't answer that question. But I do know that the science does say a calorie equals a calorie. But then again, depending on what that calorie comes from, I believe is the determining factor on what the results you will see, right? So, like I said, I can't really answer that question. I know you're disappointed in me, Jamie, just a little bit.
I am shocked that you were the one who posed this question, and you just equivocated and mumbled, and you came to absolutely no conclusion whatsoever. And you said that nobody could come to a conclusion, which I find distasteful.
Okay. That's well within your right.
But, you sicken me, sir.
Oh, my God. It's okay. But just to wrap up, don't train like an asshole and don't eat like one either. So
yeah, and that's the one thing we could all agree on.
Exactly. And that's what's important here. So, we are three like-minded individuals, and if you want to see us anywhere other than the Hatecast, you can follow me at Pyrobat on Instagram. You can also contact me via the Facebook, for the Chaos and Pain Facebook. You can contact Jamie at, where, Jamie?
I am Jamie Lewis83 on Facebook. I'm Jamie Chaos on Instagram, and I don't know what my name is on this Vero thing. I've yet to figure it out.
Oh, you downloaded that, you fucking tool?
I was trying to get free Belial clothing, and the goddamn app never works, so I can't repost something to get free clothing, so it was very aggravating.
And Peter, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Peter D. Baker.
Okay, Peter D. Baker, and you have a website which we will link below for those interested.
It's peterdbaker.com, right?
Yep.
Hey, I was going to link it, damn it. But we do, also, if you guys are interested, we do have a sale going on, I believe this weekend, right, Jamie?
Yes, we do have a sale. It's a get your ass on the beach sale, and so everything that we have, it's a fat burner, and that means Jupiter, Inferno, Red Sky, Claw, Predator,
All the good
They're
things.
all the good things in life. They're all BOGO. So
And all in celebration.
yeah, and so if you guys actually want to know about these awesome sales that we have pretty much every week, you should sign up for our mailing list on the website, and you can get all kinds of deals.
Which I will also link in the description box below where you can go and do that.
Oh, and we're also announcing who's getting 10% of a Bitcoin this month.
Oh, shit.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
we're doing that crazy thing. I forgot about that.
Every month. Although,
Awesome.
yeah.
But anyway, guys, it's been a good one, and we will see you in the next one.
I
Thanks,
thought you were
guys.
going to start singing that. It's been 1 week since you looked at me. Can you sing a little of that for us since you got a southern accent?
Fuck off.